Hi, I'm here with Mike Spivack. Michael or Mike?
Michael.
Michael.
It's my given name.
It is your given name. Sorry I had to shorten that for you.
That's okay. I respond to both.
I've heard others do so, and I just kind of went with the flow there. But thank you so much for coming for letting me actually come to your studio and do a little brief interview about all the wonderful things you do.
Glad I can host you here at Spivack Studios.
Yeah, how did we meet? Let's see. I think we met, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago, through a gentleman with a beard.
Eric the Beard, we shall call him.
Eric the Beard.
Yeah, he recommended you as a sound engineer for my project, The Shower of Sweet Nothings.
Yes, that is exactly right.
Yep, we didn't meet face to face for months, I think.
No, we were on the phone several times a week for a couple months before we actually met.
Yeah. We were just kind of doing some audio, trying to do what we could with this terrible audio that came in from 1-800 number. You were trying to be optimistic and encouraging.
Yeah, it was a challenge for sound design, but I think we pulled it off pretty well.
Yeah, I think we did too. That was fun. It was a good way to meet.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for doing this. I wanted to kind of learn a little bit about what you do and all the cool projects that I've gotten a little bit of tangential information on since we started overlapping, and
Cool.
and let people that I know about what you're up to. I just feel like I've got this really great community of cool creatives, and I would love to give a platform to just connect more people together. So I just want people to kind of learn what your latest projects have been. And
Awesome. Happy to share.
yeah. So we're here in your studio. This is pretty extensive. I would say this definitely puts my Yeti mic to shame. I'll never do a podcast this extensive and this beautiful again, I'm sure.
Well, if somebody from the 1980s, recording engineer were to come in here and look at this, they would think that I had nothing. They would be like, wow, you have enough equipment to record one microphone at one time, and that's it. But this is a digital era, and so much of it is software based these days. But it also, because of that, it's really brought accessibility to budding musicians and sound designers, because from your home you can really do so much on a professional level, even with entry-level software.
Yeah,
So.
What are some of the professional things that you've been doing? I mean, you've been working in music for a long time now.
Yeah, well, recently I've been focusing on working with artists as a producer and co-songwriter. So a lot of what I do is work with singers who come to me with an idea, a motive, an inspiration, a feeling, and I kind of tease out more of a storyline from them as I pull together sonic elements that I think are going to work with the whole vibe. The way I've been working recently that seems to be a great formula for almost everyone that I work with is to start fresh with no expectations. Tap into what they're feeling most intensely that day, and start from there. Because I've tried a lot of different formats, and I think sometimes you tend to try to fit something into shoehorn it into a box, and what ends up happening is you might have something cool that comes out of it, but you kind of miss the true inspiration, and you kind of sense that when you're hearing a track back. There's so much great music that's very heady. That's a lot of electronic music, I feel, does that as much as I love it. There are only a handful of tracks that that come out each month, each year, that really have that emotional grit. No matter what the genre is, I feel like it can be sensed. And so my way of attaining that and capturing it in the recording is to actually be working with very fresh feelings. And so start with that. Then I have a plethora of software that I use. I have a homemade sample library of percussion instruments that I've collected, individual hits of various elements over the last few years. So usually I'll start there with an application called Battery, which is a drum sequencer. And I will perform different parts of a rhythm until I've layered enough to create what I feel is like a complete beat. And then I'll find another sound source, whatever the music is asking for, whether it's a piano or an abstract synthesizer or a guitar. And so that's what, that'll be the next layer in the song. And of course, there's a lot of different formats that you can be working in. If it's discussed beforehand, you don't want drums, you're trying to go for something a little more free form, then you would take on that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Do you always start with drums? I mean, is the rhythm really the best starting point for you? Or for most people? I don't know.
Everyone really does have a different process. For me, I find that about 75 to 80% of the time, I'm starting with percussion. And the reason is so much is embedded in the rhythm about the information of the mood. The very first thing is always to find a tempo, because the tempo is something that you build off, and it's also the pulse. It kind of tells a story in and of itself. So it's really important to really get in tune with what that is first.
That makes a lot of sense. So when did you, how long have you been working in music, and, when did you kind of come to it? How did you come to it?
Well, I've been working in music effectively ever since I graduated college.
And did you graduate with a degree in music?
Yes, I did. I went to SUNY Purchase in New York, and I have an undergrad degree in studio production and a master's degree in studio composition, which actually is shorthand for pop music writing.
So you have a master's degree in pop music writing?
I certainly do.
And have you put this to good pop music use?
I am trying my best. I would say so. I really learned a lot. It was a very unique program and atmosphere, and I'm very thankful that I was able to go there. And my first job out of college was actually working for the 92nd Street Y, which is a cultural hub here in New York City. Amazing performers, musicians, actors, playwrights, poets, famous people of all sorts come through there. And I've had the opportunity to meet and do sound for some of the greatest talents still alive.
Wow.
Over my 8-year on and off stint there. It was a wonderful job because I was able to accumulate so much exposure to various musical forms. And one of the most impactful was there was a series there that happened every year, it probably still does, called Lyrics and Lyricists. And it was a little, like a lecture demonstration kind of thing, where somebody would narrate an evening with world-class musicians and 5 singers, usually from Broadway cast kind of thing. And they would come in and interpret the music of one or a team of the golden era American songbook stuff, Gershwin stuff like that. And part of it would be kind of a in-depth look at some of the lyrics. Huh. And so since I had to do the same show in rehearsal for half a week and then 6 times over the course of 3 days, I really got to know the script pretty well and was always kind of exploring the lyrics of the songs alongside it, and was really transformed by it, because I got to see some of these amazingly beautiful linguists and their work, and I never would have been exposed to that otherwise, because I was too much involved with Radiohead.
You say this with the most proud smile on your face.
Well, look, it's not cool to like Radiohead. Everyone knows that now, but at this point in the world. But they were, and still are, one of those bands, one of those few bands that was always on the cutting edge of sound. They're great writers in their own right. I wouldn't call them pop music, especially at this point, but they're unafraid to explore musical territory in their sound sources, in their arrangements, and in their melodies.
Even in their distribution,
Even in their distribution. I think, they took a page out of Trent Reznor's book.
Yeah.
But did it their own way. You know, and also Nigel Godrich is a fantastic producer who has worked with, you know, the likes of Beck, who recently won a Grammy finally for Best Album of the Year.
Wow.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
In 2015, a like chilled out semi-rock record won Best Album of the Year because it's Beck and he deserves it. But anyway, so, you know, having that foundation in music writing and the pop thing from college, and then coming here and being able to see these lyrics and the level of wit and soul and melodic shape, like, it really made me have to think harder about what I was doing.
Huh.
And over the next years, you know, I experimented with a lot of different genres, and I kind of always considered myself someone who's genre blind. Not to say that I can't discern one genre from the next, but that I don't think that they're anything more to me than a mode of expression. So when I'm interested in a genre, I learn its vocabulary and I try to really study it and create a lot of sketches before I try to take a real whack at it.
Are there any genres that you've never worked in?
I have never ever made gamelan.
What is gamelan?
I also have never done throat singing.
Oh, really? See, now that would be cool.
I've tried, but I failed and said, I'm giving up on you. No.
You had to break up with throat singing.
I did. It just hurt, you know? I wasn't doing it right. No, seriously, though, let's think of some genres I haven't worked
Country
within.
music. Have you done any country music?
I was obsessed with this record that came out a few years ago that was actually a collaboration between Robert Plant and Alison Krauss, who's a very famous country singer. Mm-hmm. And so I was writing, I wouldn't say straight country, but with a very heavily country-influenced melodic and harmonic outlook.
I think I've heard some of that, actually.
Yeah, you probably have. You know, my first solo EP that I put out had a lot of that influence in it. Even though if someone heard it now, they probably wouldn't detect country right away. If I were asked to produce a country record, I would be so psyched at it. I would feel like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hire a pedal steel player. We're gonna make some
get some
tasty
cowboy
licks.
boots and make this real. goddammit.
I'm going back to Austin. I'm gonna go to Allen's.
Call them boots some shit kickers.
Shit kickers. I love that.
So you've worked in a lot of genres. How did you end up wanting to do music for painters? I mean, that's like, there's no words at all in that, right?
Well, yeah, there's no. That was a completely instrumental record, and the concept was. So at the time, I was doing my master's degree, and I was listening to a lot of early Brian Eno ambient music, like Music for Airports, The Famous, Eternal, and also Thursday Afternoon, which I think is an amazing, beautiful hour-long piece of repetitive piano notes that are spaced and textured perfectly for meditation. And it's very, very hard to make good meditation music. And one of the reasons is because the textures you'll need to absorb so many times over and over again, and they can't overwhelm your thoughts, or else it's kind of use is diminished. So Brian Eno was one of those few people who was able to tune into that and really aesthetically paid attention in a way that I feel many others didn't. And also somehow avoided sounding too new age, which, not to say that that's a negative thing to sound new age, but that it has a flavor to it and its production style that I think is less universal than the things that Brian Eno was doing. And that's really why I paid so much attention to him. And so I started creating these slideshows. Late at night, I would just be on the internet downloading hundreds of photographs of different, whatever it was that day that I was doing. This is very weird, but the first
just
one I ever...
random photographs that you
No,
just
they
found?
weren't random.
Okay.
Like, I would pick a theme, and I would download 100 of them, and then I would whittle it down to like 40, and then I would create a slideshow and just like, the basic Mac slideshow preview thing, whatever it was,
Yeah.
And accompany it with Brian Eno's music. And what it did was it helped elevate my consciousness of the images to really think about my world. You know, what does this mean? How wondrous is this? So, for instance, the first slideshow that I ever made was called Female Egg Sacs.
Do you know I did an entire installation on the number of eggs that I have made in my lifetime?
Are you kidding?
It was an 8 foot by 8 foot by 4 foot chandelier of glass, each one representing an egg that I did the math and counted back to when I got my first period to the present.
Wow.
And I was turned out it was 222 as of the time it was installed in 2009.
So each year do you have to add a new batch?
Well, I mean, I make 13 a year, right? As every woman does. So I just did the math, and I realized that women, we all have a number. So by the time a woman reaches menopause, she knows her finite number.
Right.
I kind of like to find some old feminist, some Gloria Steinem, and be like, hey, let's do the math on your number and make your chandelier. Wouldn't that be cool? And be like, here's all the creative potential.
Who was that artist in the Brooklyn Museum who did all the plates?
I don't know.
The vagina plates?
No,
you don't know about
this?
this?
The vagina plates.
I'm ashamed to not know her name, but it's a fantastic exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum in the Feminist Gallery.
Plates, not.
They're like dinner plates.
Oh wow!
That are all sculpted, that look like vulva, but they're all very different styles to be the personality of that famous person. Like Margaret Thatcher has one. It's very interesting.
To sculpted to be the personality style? Oh my god, that's great.
You have to go and check it out.
I'm totally checking that out.
Well, anyway, so yeah, we should build a time machine, and you should send me your art exhibit so I can put it in the slideshow. Because that does count. It is a female egg sac.
It is a female egg sac.
Anyway, so yes, it sounds bizarre, but picture a species of underwater creature that you've never seen before that's just so beautiful and bizarre, right? Picture that in your mind. Now picture that fading into another one and realizing for each one of these images that represents an entire population, probably in the millions, of some creature that exists that grew and evolved to be what it is that is currently coexisting with us. And when I was able to tune that deeply into that notion while hearing that music, it actually connected me in a different way to the universe. And I felt like, wow, this is so cool. Everyone should do this. So you know what I'm going to do for the next year? I'm going to make meditation music. But it's going to be a little different. I'm not going to do exactly what Brian Eno did, though I really heavily was influenced by him. And to take a quick tangent, also he is a fantastic rock music producer who has worked with so many greats, and recently even, he made the Viva La Vida record with Coldplay, which is one of the greatest pop music successes in the last 10 years, and has his sensibilities written all over it. So that's another reason why I always admire him, because I feel very similar to him in that trajectory.
You're genre blind in that same way.
Right.
Yeah.
And understand the sensibilities of both.
We'll just wait for Brian Eno to finally get around to producing a country album, and then we'll talk.
Yeah. We'll see if it really is, transcendental.
Yeah. So why did you decide for painters? I mean, how did that part come up?
So I suppose a decent amount of that is that, my mother is an artist and a painter in her own right. And, I remember speaking to her about her having kind of some inspiration blockages. Now, I know that there's things that happen in people's lives that make them, a little too busy, or they get too involved in something or another. And she was a full-time teacher. She still is, actually, in art schools. And so, it's hard to find the time when you're trying to manage everything to be inspired. But when she did get inspired, she would be up there in her little attic studio painting away. And, that, and also just me loving to draw when I was listening to these types of pieces. Kind of like they would relax me, and even in a Starbucks, I could sit there and be transported to this other layer of reality and tune in pretty deeply to my own images and carefully draw them. Actually have a couple over there that I did during that era where I would use drafting pens, like, staplers. And I really always loved the .005, really my favorite. So, I did it, for myself, partially, to create a way where I could listen to this and be creative.
Like a rapid access point, almost. for you.
Yeah, you can transport immediately by pressing play. And so...
That's a good tagline right there, you know.
That's true. Okay, branding. This was a branding exercise. You know, and really to share with everyone is the point. And so music for painters, it does point at a specific action, but it really can work for anything except for music for writing music, because maybe that would interfere.
Music for writing music.
So, but anything else, you know, you want to study. I had a family friend who listened to a subsequent piece that I made that could have just as easily been on Music for Painters. It was called Sitting on a Pale Blue Dot, which was based on the Carl Sagan pale blue dot analogy, which was the view of the Earth from so far away that it became just a pale blue dot on the, you know, celestial horizon. And so it kind of puts everything in a perspective in one's life to see the world all in one shot, rather than, you know, all sprawled out here and all our emotions taking over us. So I made a 30-minute piece that was designed to do that, kind of give you that perspective. And he studied every night going to med school, listening to that piece. And when he got his degree, he wrote me and told me, hey man, that really helped.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, really, you know, I felt wonderful. I was taken aback. You know, I didn't really think that I was going to do much except for be a pleasant thing for people. But, I always knew, I had an instinct that it was going to be helpful if put in the right hands. And it's really hard in today's society to find people who are interested in slowing down, because everything's just speeding up. It still is, you know. The accessibility to information, our ADD is getting worse as a people. And...
Yeah. It's almost getting celebrated for being, you know, a great way to stay busy. You're so busy.
Yeah, right.
Doing a lot of things at once.
It's like, it's perpetuated. And I think it's really important for people to slow down sometimes. And I think these are the kinds of tools that, you know, people can use that are healthy.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, so it sounds like you've had, I mean, some really inspiring jobs and some really, really cool opportunities that have come from it. But I'm wondering what was your least creative, what was your worst job? And did it help to propel you like more determinedly towards your, you know, your creative pursuits?
Okay, well, the funny answer is working at a bakery when I was 16, because the guy who I was working for was like a straight up bigot, and just listening to his racial slurs was just like baffling to me. Plus, he once made me clean roaches off the wall using toxic chemicals right next to the bread mixer, and I was like, you know what, I think it's time to quit. Did it help inspire me?
Were you like, I am never going back to a bakery, so help me God?
I did, however, learn how to fill jelly donuts in my tenure there.
A skill that will always be called upon and useful in the future.
Absolutely. But in recent years, let's see, do I have an uninspiring... Well, you know, I try not to look at it that way, only because every job that I've taken ever since college has actually been directly related to music in some way. I mean, engineering being part of it. A lot of the jobs that I've done have included, you know, live sound engineering for different events, whether it was concerts or meetings or
sound booths of the Shower of Sweet Nothings.
Or exactly. Or working with artists in New York City, making an impact in the art scene, going to Art Basel, you know, Basil. What am I?
Whatever.
Blew it up.
It's not an herb, okay.
That's a good hint. Yeah, so I mean, sure, like some of the mixing jobs where I'm out in the field and I'm just humping gear and tweaking knobs. But you know, that's led me to like one of the most exciting jobs I ever had, which is I got hired by Taylor Dane to mix a show for her at the Syracuse Jazz Festival.
Nice.
You know, I was the sound engineer. She was the performer. There were 10,000 people there. I was driving a console and a sound system that was just like insanity. It was so loud and amazing.
Wow.
So, you know, all those little gigs I did, and I got connected through working with a keyboardist, through a musical director who worked at New York City Housing Authority, which is, you know, the New York projects.
Right.
They had a creative arts unit, which is actually where I met Beard Eric.
Eric the Beard.
Eric the Beard. you know, that's how we got connected, and then that was the next gig. So the way I like to look at it is, even if you're in an uninspiring gig, the people that surround you, they can either be your sanity and your way of getting through all that and having the socialization and learning more about yourself, or you could just kind of ignore them and put up with it and put up a barrier and not take anything from it. I just refuse to do that because it seems like a waste of time to me.
Yeah, kind of is a waste of time. Everything leads to something. The next thing.
It is true.
I mean, if we're stuck in linear time, we might as well make the best of it.
If.
Says the chronic meditator. Well, so when you think of the word successful, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Balance. Balance is the first thing, because I think it's really easy to get sucked into the concept that when I have enough of this, I will have this. Because it's not true. You know, we spend within our means. If we're multimillionaires, we have a bunch of stuff. We become attached to it. Attachment leads to suffering. Thanks, Buddha.
Thanks, Buddha.
So for me, really, it's balance. You know, it's about making sure that your important relationships in your life are taken care of, making sure that your health is, you know, taken care of, and making sure that you're being, you know, as honest with yourself as you can about your direction and your next steps. Because there's only one constant, and that's change. You know, we can try to resist it, but resistance is futile.
Another branding exercise. Well done.
Borg.
So my last question that I ask basically everyone. So sorry if this seems like a canned, but there's all these sort of, what am I trying to say? There are all these assumptions that people have about creative folks. You know, that you're going to be a late night person. You're going to be up all night, you know, drinking wine, or I don't know, whatever it is. But I always wonder, are you an early morning person or a night owl or both and neither? You go both ways.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Well, in my college years, and I think many people are like this, 4 a.m. was my bedtime normally. But, you know, I've crossed the 30 line now, and so things are a lot different. I find that my best days of balance are when I wake up at 7:50 a.m., give or take a few minutes, and, you know, come to the studio, have a nice cup of coffee, warm up my gear, and, you know, set my intentions for the day. And so I think the short answer is you kind of adapt to what your job calls for. And I don't think it's really like the old image of the record industry anymore, where people are working 24 hours around the clock in the studio with, you know, cocaine and strippers just strewn about.
Oh, the good old days are gone.
Good old days. It's just, guys, it's boring daytime work now. No, I mean, that does happen during crunch time in terms of the hours.
Sorry, I was just like, should we talk about your wedding that's coming?
I've never been one for the hookers or blow. So.
All right, well.
But not judging those who are, you know, just saying. But yeah, I mean, I've certainly pulled quite a few all-nighters myself. But I think that right now, that's the balance. I like to have a lifestyle that allows me to participate in, you know, my relationship, in family activities, and in seeing my friends who are all getting progressively busier as we age. So this really is the way the world rotates here. So unless you know, if you're in a situation where you're a truck driver and you've got to go overnight to make your destination, you know, that's just different.
Right.
You have different expectations, but and you can work with your life within those expectations. You know, so
Sure.
It's in terms of being an artist, though, I think it's really formless. I really feel like younger artists tend to do the late shift.
Yeah.
And as we
but
get
younger,
older,
everyone does the late shift, right?
right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just it's like that. You know, I think the misnomer a misconception I think that some people who are not in an artistic trade or have exposure to those who are, is that, you know, they're irresponsible or hippie-ish or whatever it is. And by and large, I've found that I've met just about every type of personality in the art world. Some are extremely logical and anal. Some are extremely emotional and seem spacey. And some are just super well-balanced human beings. And it really runs the gamut. So, you know, for those who are having a first encounter with an artist, I'm extending my finger like E.T. You know, I think don't have any expectations. Start to get to know the person, and you'll have your answer there.
Yeah.
But don't apply that to every other artist. Everyone is really different.
Well, I guess my only last question would be, where can people find out more about your work? Do you have a website, URLs, links, things like that?
I have a website, which is kind of my production and songwriting portfolio. I'm trying to be better about constantly updating it, but there's some good material up now people can listen to. It's michaelspivackmusic.com.
Not Mike.
Not Mike. See?
And could you spell that?
Sure. Michael, the traditional spelling, Spivack music.com. There's also a SoundCloud under Spivack Music.
Cool. And we'll be putting up a link for Music for Painters as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
I know. I can't wait for lots of people to try to paint listening to it. See what happens.
And what is it? Plug in and transform as soon as you hit play. What was your tagline? Your new branding?
Thank God this was recorded.
Thank God. Thank God. Well, thank you again, Michael.
Thank you, Monica. It's a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.